So I like to say, as many people do, you need to know what you own. So we're going to talk about Hedera Hashgraph. We're going to talk about three things, but two things about how it's governed and how changes are made, because you need to understand how they do it and why it's different from others. And some say that's good, some say that's bad. And then at the end, I'm going to tell you why I think it is incredibly powerful and gives them a gigantic advantage over everyone else. Let's get started. Usually at the end of the day, I'll do ICB and Hedera update. I decided to start splitting them out. They are both layer ones. They are both very different. I don't see them in direct competition with each other because they do very different things. They solve different problems in unique ways. So I'm going to create playlists just related to those. I point that out because in case you subscribe and you only want to hear about one of them, you can just jump on that playlist. So let's talk about, first off, governance of a blockchain. It's decentralized. Therefore, the idea is that no one company or one person in a Web 2 world, they would say, has control. So the governance would be decentralized. Well, this is chain spec, and I like that they actually have this governance column, and you can sort. Here, let's just sort by ascending. So they've got, look at the ones that have a council. Actually, let's do descending. On-chain. So on-chain governance, if we scroll down here, you'll notice all of these: Stellar, Tron, SCI, Aptos, Arbitrum, BNB, most of them, right? Look, I'm still going. All right. Off-chain. Well, off-chain is interesting. Solana says it's off-chain. Blockchain governance is made off-chain. All right. But then we've got council. Hedera is a council. Very interesting. It's a select group of organizations. So it's not just a couple people within the company. It's external companies. So if we go to Hedera, we're going to talk about two things: this governing council and then the HIPSs. So first, an HIPS, Hedera Improvement Proposal. Basically, if you want to have a change or a modification, or whatever it may be, you submit a proposal, and they have a procedure here. I'll put a link to it, but it goes through how you submit a proposal, how everything works, the flow, if you will, as it goes from a proposal to potentially being actually implemented. They basically speak about three different HIP types. You've got a new feature or implementation. You've got a design issue or a process surrounding it, a process change or change to a process. They usually fall into one of those three categories. You have the Hedera Council, which we'll talk about in a minute. They also have Hedera Core Developers, and those are people that are employees of Hedera or contractors or community developers. They have been received grants to help develop. And then HIP editors. It goes through the whole process. But as you can see, it's fairly different than your typical decentralization. Although the HIP process, because it's completely transparent and everyone can see it, I would argue that that is decentralized. Now let's look at, and I'll tell you why this is even more important, the governing council. So the governing council here, it looks like they've got up to potentially 39 seats. And they have, it says, the 39 members will be distributed fairly across region, time, and industry. They have rules about it, how long you can be on it. I think maybe you can do 2 terms for a certain amount of time. But as you can see here, these are large companies that many of you are familiar with. Google, even Dell, even things that you might say, well, what are some of these? Many of these are like companies in Australia or companies in Switzerland. They're all over the globe, which is great. Now, one thing I want to point out is they say here at the top, there's up to 39, of which they have, I believe, 32 at the moment, collusion-resistant organizations. And I just thought, well, that's interesting. What a great marketing line. But then I thought, well, let's look it up. And I looked up, and Google AI says that, hey, yeah, there is such a thing, and there have been papers on collusion-proof, decentralized, autonomous organizations. They do believe that because of the way these governance councils are set up, in the way in which they vote and work with one another, that they are collusion-proof. Okay. Now, here's what's interesting. Other companies you can see, or other blockchains, I don't think any of them have a council that's this large, and the council members are from these types of companies. So let me tell you why I think this really matters. Sure, for governance, that's great. Let's just assume you've got some of the best minds and some of the best companies, and they're coming together, and therefore they're going to create the best blockchain with the best features. But if you've ever started or had your own startup company, you're going to know, and if you haven't, let me tell you, it is very hard. It is next to impossible. If you want to speak to someone at, say, Google, and you want to get someone in a particular group, well, first of all, you got to figure out what group is responsible for that thing. If you want to do some sort of a collaboration, whatever it may be, you got to figure out what group it's in, if that group exists, where are they, who's there, what are their names, how do you get in contact with them, will they even pick up the phone, will they even answer an email, if you can even get that information. It's next to impossible. But if they're on your governing council, it's like having them on your board. You have a board member that has that kind of connections, you just say, hey, I want to talk to someone. They'll figure it out. They'll send off an email, and within 24 hours, they'll get a response back because of their stature within the company of exactly who to talk to, and you'll be put in touch with them. So to me, that is substantial that they can get in and speak with these types of companies. Not only can they use them, obviously, as a governing council, but they can use them to help in development. What is it that companies like yours need? I mean, look, Avery Dennison is on this board, and you've probably seen the examples of how they're using Hedera with a company they had set up to help track everything throughout a process. And now you've got all these other companies. You'll be able to reach anyone. I think this is incredibly powerful. I don't know any other blockchain that has these types of connections at their fingertips. This is going to be and is huge for Hedera and will continue to be. I mean, look, you could just call up and speak to someone at Boeing and say, hey, why are all your planes falling out of the sky? And you might actually get a response. Probably not. But I think this is one brilliant move, because let's just say that they decided to create this governing council when in reality, what they really wanted was their input, and they wanted, which of course is part of the governing council, but they wanted the input and connections. If that was their initial thought when they set this up, brilliant. Well done. Good play. Thanks for watching. Hope this is helpful. I always like to say, know what you own, and let's make generational wealth together with crypto. Have a great day.